Open source software. Where did it start? Why did it get so popular? What are some real examples? And what is our open source strategy here at Polyseam? Open source software is computer software that's released under a specific license, and it makes the source code publicly available. There are many different types of open source licenses. Some are more permissive, some are less permissive, but generally they all allow the users to run, change, study, and even redistribute the code to anybody for any purpose. The term open source was coined by Christine Peterson, working as an executive at Foresight Institute. It was essentially created to rebrand the term free software. There was a lot of misunderstanding and ambiguity with the term free, since it was meant in the context of freedom and not free beer, sadly. Shortly after the term was coined, the open source initiative was founded by Bruce Perens and Eric Raymond. Essentially, it was created as a nonprofit to be the leading voice of all open source principles and policies. And they claimed that the fundamental difference between open source software and proprietary software was the availability of the source code. Since then, open source has absolutely exploded in popularity, and pretty much everything out there is built on some type of open source software. One of the most famous examples is the operating system Linux. Since then, some other common examples are programming languages like Python, development environments like VS Code, or 3D modeling software like Blender. There are also countless other examples, but that's just to give you 3. For contrast, some examples of non-open source proprietary software are the Adobe Creative Suite, Microsoft Office, Cinema 4D. The list really goes on for open source and non-open source softwares, but those are just some examples of each. But what really drove the explosion, and why did open source become so popular? Open source was a strategy created with the focus on the development of the code. And with source code publicly available, it really accelerates the innovation behind projects because everybody can look at it, everybody can see how it works and try to make it better. This also brings up a really important aspect of open source, which are contributors. Contributors are the people that actually work on the projects and make them better. Contributors can be anybody like you and me who just want to help with the development of a software product. It's also a perfect way to learn as a developer and build out your skills with new technologies. It gives you a project that you can talk about on your resume, and you actually get to have a real impact on the direction of a project. There really are no prerequisites to becoming a contributor, but it is a good idea to learn the language that the codebase is written in and probably the version control system as well. But there are also other ways to contribute to open source projects, like doing design work or writing technical documentation. Other reasons that open source has exploded in popularity are because, first of all, it gives you a really big financial advantage compared to using proprietary software because it's free, and you can also avoid vendor lock-in. Open source also just builds really great communities around projects, which is awesome when you're trying to learn them because there's lots of people that you can ask questions to, and if you're troubleshooting an issue, there's going to be help. One of the most important aspects of open source is the actual license the software is released under. This license tells the users legally how they can actually use the software. There are many different types of open source licenses. Some of the most common are the ones approved by the Open Source Initiative, or also known as the OSI. If you go to opensource.org/licenses, that's where you can find a full list of all the OSI approved licenses. I'll leave a link to that in the description below, but some of the most common ones are Apache, MIT, and GPL licenses. If you ever want to create your own license with your own different levels of permissions, you can create one and submit it to the OSI. They have a review process, and once it gets approved, they'll put it on their list. But where can open source go from here? It's already pretty popular. What does the future look like? There are some people out there that want literally everything open sourced, like the design plans for an iPhone, the design plans for this mic. Is that a realistic future? I have no idea. Let us know what you think in the comments below. In more recent years, there's been a concept called commercial open source that's been gaining a lot of traction and also a lot of venture capital money. Because when you think about it, businesses can't really maintain and grow when they're just giving away everything for free. So commercial open source opens the doors for companies to monetize their open source offerings. And while still releasing your code base to the public and giving your software away for free, you can sell things like support services, implementation services, or create smaller proprietary features that revolve around the core open source offering. If you're interested in diving further into the commercial open source community, I really highly recommend you check out cost.community. It's an awesome resource to learn about all this stuff and stay up to date on commercial open source software. Commercial open source software is also where Polyseam operates, so if you want to hear an example, here's our strategy. So we have our core offering, which is a data product registry. Basically, the value proposition of the software is it enables organizations to implement and maintain a data mesh in their organization. It's not ready yet, but it will be soon. Our users have the option to self-host the platform on their own servers and use the software totally free and open source. That is the free open source version and way to use our software. But if you don't want to self-host the platform, you can pay us to manage the server for you or implementation support. So it can still be totally free and users can get the full value out of it, or they can pay us a little bit of money and make their lives slightly easier. If you're interested in learning more about the data product registry, like I said, it's not ready yet, but I'll definitely leave a link in the description below if you want to check out our website and sign up for early access. Hopefully you understand a little bit more about open source software, why it got so popular, where it came from, and what our strategy is. If you have any comments or questions, drop them below. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you so much for watching and have an awesome day.